Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today, a good friend and one of the people on the AMCON Planning Committee with me, Amanda Suffecool of Eye on the Target Radio. Amanda, thanks for tagging along today.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. This is I have an assigned day if they haven't noticed yet. And
Yes,
this one's it.
every other Wednesday, unless something. I mean, every once in a while with everybody, something happens, and we have to, change things
Swap.
up. But want to remind everybody as we get going, if you want to get your comments on the air and have us discuss them, just comment on either the live Facebook or YouTube video, or if you're watching off OpsLens or any other media, go ahead and tweet with the hashtag Bullet Podcast. That's actually the way I get the comments the fastest. And I'll get your comment on the air and we'll discuss it. Let's see here. Go over to, yep, we're all good there. We're all hooked up. Everybody, I want to start with yesterday when Craig and I were on the air. We had one story we just didn't have time to get to, and I have a feeling there's going to be one or two stories we don't have time to get to today. There's a lot to talk about, but it came out that the Scholastic Target Shooting Foundation in California has shut down because of state law that was signed into law by the governor. Off their website, league president John Nelson wrote, "The league is in the safest sport in high school. Over 1,500 schools across the nation have approved the program. Hundreds of thousands of students have participated, and there's never been an accident or injury." But yet, because of this law in California, they had to shut down everything in California because you cannot promote the use of guns to anybody under the age of 18. And this is what I take from this, Amanda, is that, and they're right, it's the safest sport around. Football, high school football injures tens of thousands of kids every
Hmm.
year. And there's never been an injury in nationally in target shooting in the Scholastic Target Shooting Foundation's history. Extremely safe and teaches a sporting event, and honestly, I think promotes the Second Amendment in a very positive way because of a feature. I believe it was designed in the California law that way. It's now illegal in California.
Well, the other piece of it is that that it is a safe sport and it's teaching a life skill. So it is teaching our youth firearm safety, how to handle it, how to respect a firearm, and the different applications of a firearm. California doesn't seem to want that, and so I at the same time I saw this story, there's also a notice that went out from one of my firearms training friends that says that they can no longer teach firearm safety to juveniles. So think about that. So here's a law that is intended to keep kids away from guns in the name of safety, but now that means that you can't teach firearm safety to those same age children.
Yeah, things like and when Craig was on the show yesterday, we had a story that I got off the NRA ILA website. And when he went to go look at that story to read it, because he's in California, he had to confirm it to the website that he was over the age of 18. It's silliness is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's we are not pornography, okay? We are not any of a myriad of things that could truly be harmful, depending on.
But but think about it this way: if you were a juvenile who was intent upon reading this content that is banned, right? So it's book banning or internet banning, if you will. Um, what's what's to stop you from just saying, "Sure, I'm over 18." Click,
And that's
right?
what he did.
It's right. It's not. So if you were under 18, what's to stop you from lying to read it? So what's the purpose of it? Uh, I mean, I have to say, I'm of a certain age now, but there was a time when as a juvenile, my parents would give me a set of rules, and they were flexible, if you will. They weren't
If you were
flexible to
creative,
them.
yes, yes.
Right. If you were creative, those rules were flexible. And so tell me how our nation's youth is not creative and flexible.
You know, and I see I didn't it didn't make show notes today, but I seen an article by Tom Knighton on
Mm.
Bearing Arms.
I
There,
love Tom Knighton, and
oh,
his way of looking at the world is like, oh,
there were 4 teenagers arrested in San Francisco with one. They had Glocks and very big. Well, even for us, these would be large capacity magazines. You know, we're talking 100 round magazines that are designed to go into a Glock. Um, they were, and yet again, criminals don't care. They're going to do what they're going to do. Gun
mhm,
laws don't work. And just by saying you can't look at this, California is not going to curb the interest in firearms to the youth. And by the way, if you're under 18 and you're watching this, shooting can be a very safe and very enjoyable activity.
mhm,
So
right.
I expect those felony charges from Governor Newsom anytime now because I said that. But
Oh, there you go.
let
You're going to
me,
be the most wanted in California. No visit to the House of the Mouse for you.
oh, there's one in Florida, and they like guns down in Florida. So let me get a couple comments in here real quick. Um, this one, Mike White, referring to no injuries in scholastic shooting, not even a sprained trigger finger. Well, I would think that
Well,
would be an injury. So,
that would have been a reportable. Yeah. So,
um,
yeah.
and then Mike White also says can't even sell a T-shirt with a picture of a gun to a minor. Yep, that's right.
Right. Mhm.
Um, going to PNW Woods, Pacific Northwest Woods. Whether you're pro or anti-guns, we are pro. Guns exist. Shouldn't all parents want safe gun handling?
Bingo.
Yes.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, but there's obviously there's legislators in California that would prefer to go back to bed and pull their pillow over their head and just hide.
yes.
That's
Bury their head in the sand, so to speak. Absolutely.
mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Two more comments here. This one also from Pacific Northwest Woods. Um, Kids safe, Derek LeBlanc, should be in all schools. Zero firearm accidents is the only acceptable goal. You know,
Oh, so
Derek's a
right.
good
Yeah.
friend of both of ours,
Mhm.
and he does a fantastic program when he gets together with the kids. I would wholeheartedly agree with that. The only problem with that is we can't clone him enough times to get him in front of all the kids.
Well, there's a couple things. One is I've seen him in action. It is a great program. Got to sit in the back of the room and watch him interact with the kids. And then the second thing is the DC Project is a huge fan of his, and they are talking to their legislators when they're saying, "Wow, you know, if we can't ban guns, what ideas do you have?" And Derek LeBlanc's Kid Safe is one of the what ideas do you have? You know, in the industry, there are things that people are doing. They're doing that. They're doing Hold My Gun. They're doing Faster Saves Lives. You know, there are people across the country that in the firearms world are doing things and doing things well.
Yes, absolutely. Uh, two more comments here, real quick, then we'll move on to our next story. Uh, Larry says, gone and almost forgotten are the NRA junior marksmanship programs. Yes,
Hmm.
NRA's Eddie Eagle program is still around. It's on life
Right.
support, but it's still around and it's still in some schools.
Well, they did that crazy little wingman thing. I don't know what that was, but so all of a sudden there's this whole wing team and stuff. Put it back.
Yeah.
Just put it back. Respect the eagle.
Yes. Last one from Mike Schmidt. Chicken Little, the sky is falling, the sky is falling.
Right?
Next story. This one got my blood boiling. This was the first story I came up with for today. That last one was a carryover from yesterday. Uh, gun stores in multiple New York counties will now be forced to warn people against buying their products. Albany County passed an ordinance on Monday requiring gun dealers to post a warning about the purported dangers of gun ownership. Those who don't comply with the ordinance could face up to $1,000 fine or 15 days in jail. The ordinance is nearly identical to one passed by Winchester County in June. This is the warning. Access to a weapon or firearm in the home is significantly increases the risk of suicide, homicide, death during domestic disputes, and unintentional deaths to children, household members, and others. The warning reads, if you or a loved one is experiencing distress and or depression, call the Crisis Prevention and Response Team at 914-925-5959 or the National Suicide Hotline at 988. I did go ahead and read those numbers because there's no harm in reaching out to those numbers.
Those are, the second paragraph to that is legit. I am not for government overreach. I am not for the government telling us what to do, but I don't have a problem with the concept that says if you are not feeling the thing and you are feeling like the world is got you by the tail instead of the other way around, reach out, get some help, and here's some numbers. I don't think that's bad. I don't think it should be mandated and fined, but there's that. And then that's the first part of it saying that, if you have a gun around, you're more likely to be killed by it. The interesting part of that data is when you look at Dr. John Lott, and there's another story coming up later.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the Dr. John Lott stuff, what they say, the data that they roll out is not really supported by data. They pick it and choose it and chop it up to make it say what you want to say. But the premise, as I understand it, to say that if you were shot or killed by a gun, that guess what? There's probably was a gun around. So when they flip that data to say if there's a gun around, you're going to be shot by it, it's really an extrapolation of everybody who's shot by a gun had a gun somewhere near them.
Yeah, here's the logic is if somebody's shot, there's a gun there. Gee, do you think?
Exactly, that's it. But they say figures lie and liars figure. You can slice and dice and chop data to make it look like what you want it to look like. And so that is what they use to support the fact that you're more likely to be harmed by a firearm, because they don't count any time that someone uses a gun in a defensive use that they don't pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Those don't get counted. So it really is. I mean, those of us who have sat through math class with bell-shaped curves, when you take that whole chunk off of the bell-shaped curve and cut it away, guess what? Your data is not normalized data because you've excluded a group of data points that help prove the other half of the bell-shaped curve. But there you go. Sorry, engineer.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. the when you use data, you've got to use a complete set of data, and we'll get into that in that other story.
Right.
But if you don't, what you come up with is totally worthless.
Hmm.
Um, let's let's actually, that's next on the list. Let's go ahead and get into that. This story off realclearinvestigations.com. I will. I'm going to go ahead and put that story in the comments for both the Facebook
Yeah,
and the
see it,
YouTube.
because the interesting part is the story was written by Dr. John Lott from crimeresearch.org. And Dr. John Lott is an economist by career path,
Mhm.
and yet became data driven and became pretty much the numbers guy for guns and gun crime. And there's so much stuff that he has to say that makes so much sense. And I mean, one time he was talking about how the underserved communities, how the NICS background check works, and how the underserved communities get more and more delays than anybody else, because the 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 ATF does not, or the NICS portion does not necessarily use your social security number. They use names and like names. And so if you live in a community that has a lot of Mike Smiths in it, and a Mike Smith is in trouble, then guess what? All the Mike Smiths are kind of on delay, on hold, and they're sorting through to figure out if you are that Mike Smith or not. So if you're in a community that has this last name or that last name, or I mean, I live 10 miles from an Amish community, and let me tell you, there's more Millers and Yoders than you've ever seen anyplace else, right? I mean, but so you go to the inner city, there's a different name. You go to, Slavic Village, there's a different type of name. So when you get into an area that has high crime, even if you're not the criminal, you get painted with that brush, and you get a delay on anything that happens for you and your constitutional rights. So that's it made so much sense to me, and it was an eye opening to me. But then when you look at what he's rolling out today, I'm leading up to the story that you're going to share with us, because
Yeah,
it too is another one of those that makes so much sense. So there you go.
yeah, and in this particular story, what Dr. Lott points out is that the FBI says, through their statistics, that fewer than 3% of active killers were stopped by a civilian with a firearm. When he went in and he dug through the numbers and found cases where the FBI overlooked them, it's actually over 14%. So
Right.
the FBI screwed up by 3 orders of magnitude.
Well, and the other thing is that there's not even as much as the Giffords Foundation says that there's a ton of active shooter incidents. They're meeting the criteria for the FBI and active shooters. There are not nearly that many. And so with 3 orders of magnitude being wrong, I mean, one of the stories that they did not consider a civilian defense is Jack Wilson in the church, when with the church security team. They said, oh, well, that's a security team. That's not a civilian.
Well, and in this story, the church security team was the entire congregation, because I think all but 2 of the congregation were armed.
Yeah, but when they start and look at it that way, it was sort of like a couple of years ago. They were one of the anti-gun groups was reading off the names of all of the victims of gun violence. And so they were someplace on the East Coast, and they were like taking hours. They're going to read this name and that name and this name. And they had these people, and everybody was rotating through, and you read X number of names and then moved on. The the part that was made it to where it was a dog and pony show, or maybe it was a circus with monkeys, was the fact that they included the Boston bomber
Mm-hmm.
because he had been shot before he got run over by a car and killed. But that shows you that
And shot by the police.
anyone,
That by
right.
shot
So
by the police. By the way, yeah.
they included everyone who had been shot by the police in the commission of a crime. But most of the civilians, most of us don't recognize those names. That guy, we all knew that name. And that's where they got busted for it. But they had to pump up those numbers in some manner. And so that was a piece of it.
I have a guy that volunteers. He writes up the defensive gun use segment of the Polite Society podcast every week, Dana Lufer. And Dana was following this for quite a while. And quite often we would get a DGU, a defensive gun use, and a good person would shoot somebody breaking into their house or committing a crime, and they had to shoot somebody. He would look, and the bad guy's name would end up on this database simply because they had been shot. It didn't matter they were trying to break into an occupied house while
Or they were trying
shot.
to kill you first.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Nope. Exactly.
I'll get a couple comments in here real quick. Mike Schmidt says, Mark Twain said there's lies, damn lies, and statistics. I love that quote. And then George over on the YouTube side says, we are our own first responders. I have 1 shotgun and 3 fire extinguishers at home. I have more guns in my house than fire extinguishers by a sight, but I've got 3 or 4 fire. I've got 4 fire extinguishers at home, and a few more firearms than that. We'll leave it there.
We'll just say I've had training with both.
Next, and we're not even getting close to all the stories we've got.
No.
Even going overtime, we're not going to get close to all the stories we got. The next story I got came off of AmmoLand. After the numbers for yesterday or for last month were crunched, we are just slight drop for July in gun sales, but it's still set 37 months in a row of over 1 million gun sales per month. It ended up being 1.3 million gun sales per month when NSF for July when NSSF crunched all the numbers. That's
37 months at
yes.
more than 1 million guns a month.
Yes.
And so think about this though, folks, because that's not really the whole story, Paul Harvey, because that is the numbers that they get from the NICS background check. One is multiple purchases to only count as 1 call in. The other is that any state that allows you to use your concealed carry license does not show up in that database. And anything that is a face-to-face private sale or transfer also does not show up in this database. So there are, and I'm not sure now, I've forgotten how many states allow you to use your concealed carry as the background check to
South
not
Dakota
have
is one
to.
of them.
Ohio is. And so, in Ohio, we run number 40 on everything. So the fact that they are says that there's a lot of other states that are too. So that number is bigger. We won't tell the anti-gunners, but that number's bigger.
I think this is probably going to be the last story we get to. I kind
of promises. Then you tell me our talk over time. Yeah,
this one's going to take us over time, simply because Amanda, I know you used to own a gun store, and you had to deal with credit card payment processing.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the largest credit card processing companies is named Elevon. And I'm just going to read from this story off of AmmoLand. The leading payment processor for 80% of firearm kit retailers has bent a knee to the rabid anti-gun left by using flawed Everytown for gun data safety, or Everytown for gun safety data on gun laws. Most online sellers of non-serialized firearms and receivers use a company called Elevon to process credit cards. Merchants that sell items such as polymer 80s started receiving notices that they could not ship their products to certain states. Accompanying the email was a web page on the Everytown for Gun Safety website claiming it is illegal to ship polymer 80 kits to 11 states. The credit card company asked its customers to provide proof that it has a system in place to prevent sales to these 11 states. The problem is, I'm just going to summarize from here. The problem is one of those 11 states is Nevada. Nevada does have that law. However, a judge has ruled that law unconstitutional and struck it. The law is still
Right.
on the books, and so every town still counts it. So this credit card processor still counts it, although it's totally legal to sell those things to residents of Nevada.
Well, and see, the thing is they've got 11 states listed. So the author of this story found data and proof that at minimum, one of the states it was wrong. I'm not convinced and that the author went past that to look at the other 10. Because once they say this is the group and you prove that it is not, do you continue on? So it could be more than one of the 11. So there is that piece of it. It's you know I did own a gun shop, and we owned a gun shop for quite a while, and we ran into issues where the bank would we had a bank pull out. And what happens is it's not a managed pullout where they're like, yeah, 2 months from now we're not going to be your bank anymore. It is today we are not going to be your bank anymore. And so all of a sudden everything that's in process there, you're trying to figure it out. It's a hot mess. We were involved in guns and gun sales and accessories and things when PayPal went woke. And at that point, PayPal locked up for me thousands of dollars of money, and they held it. And they held it for almost 3 months before they gave it back to us. After they canceled our account and shut us down and wouldn't let us work with them at all, they held our money for months. It was a mess. So the fact that and there's another story that recently came out where one of the larger banks was trying to get the other banks to work with them to create a login system that said that anything that was guns and gun sales were coded in a manner to where they could be identified in the future for those sales. And the other bank said no. But there are some of these woke bankers that are really pushing. And so if you have a constitutional right to buy a gun and you have the legal right to sell a gun, and yet the bank says that we will not allow you to take money for them, and when it's your bank that's doing it, it's not just the credit card portion, it is the bank portion. So it is the I got cash, I deposited it into your bank, and you're holding the money. So it is a big small business problem when the banks go woke and decide that something that's perfectly legal is offensive to them.
Yeah, and they quite literally have you by the short hairs, to use a somewhat sketchy term. You can't really go anywhere. There's only a few credit card processors,
Right,
and so you're kind of stuck.
right.
Um, Michael over on the YouTube side. Let me get the right button there. Michael over the YouTube side is with where you can where you can make a purchase
Using,
with just your
yeah,
concealed carry
CCW
permit.
license.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that was another
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, I think that the numbers, it's like 8 or 10 of them. I mean, I don't think it's a small number.
Yeah.
So when you look at it that way, so let's look right now. We're saying that that's at least three: Michael's, Iowa, Ohio, South Dakota, right? If you
Mhm.
look at it that way, that means that number could be pumped up, just in flat out numbers. That number could be pumped up another 6%, because every state's worth 2%, right? That in generalities.
Yes.
So those numbers all move, and so another 2% for every other state that's like that. Then
Abs-
then you really see a growth in those numbers.
Here's a great question. The Pacific Northwest Woods wants to know: is there any pro-gun bank slash credit card processing companies?
There's been some small companies that tried to do it, and they come and they go. And I don't understand the background of banking enough to understand how they're like ta-da and then they're gone. So I don't know why, but I don't know why.
There was, and my memory isn't working right now. There was a barrel manufacturer that was having problem after problem after problem, and they decided we're going to become a credit card processing company because we're having all these problems.
Hmm.
Macmillan, I want to say, is who it was.
Maybe.
I know they're around. I just don't know why they aren't bigger. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. And see, some of it is the startup thing. I mean, you have to look at, a small amount of credit card processing fees. So when you look at using your credit card, the typical fee is something like 28-30 cents for you to just swipe your card plus a percentage. And so as a small company gets started, they have enough overhead that those numbers have to be bigger. And so there's a lot of companies that are looking at it going, it's a purely financial thing, that I'm better off going to the gun neutral, smaller fee company in the short term until it grows bigger and maybe somebody else can support it as it grows. And so you're watching, because frankly, gun shops don't have a lot of margin
Right.
in what they buy and sell. And so they run pretty tight on a shoestring unless they've created their own products. When you look at the MSRP on a gun, and you look at what some of the internet gun stores are selling that'll drop ship directly to you. So I'm going to name names. Bud's Guns.
Hmm.
So you're sitting there and you're running a gun shop, and you can buy something at your distribution location. It's going to cost you X dollars. They go to Bud's Guns and they can pay X dollars plus 5%, 7%, right, to buy it from Bud's Guns. By the time you get it, you have to mark it up and you charge sales tax. If they buy it from Bud's Guns and have it shipped in, that sales tax is on their honor when they fill out their own tax return. So it looks cheaper until they get audited by the new 87,000 IRS agents. But, so it's a struggle, and there's all of that underlying stuff that people have to keep in mind.
Yes. All right. We are a big shock. I knew we would be. We're over. It's a Magnum episode. Um, let's. I want to before. Well, while we're on our way out, I want to plug two things. And then I'll let you plug whatever you want. I want to plug AmCon and I want to plug GRPC. You and I both, along with Cheryl Todd, Charlie Cook, and Yehuda Reamer, and my wife Susan, we all work on AmCon. That's the Alternative Mass Media Conference. Happens every year with GRPC, and we're going to be in Dallas this year on the 30th of September. I am really looking forward to it because, and I'm going to let you explain this a little bit. We're doing something I'm calling it. If you have a better name for it, go right ahead and hit me over the head with it. But I'm kind of calling it directed networking. And if you're in Second Amendment media, or if you're maybe considering being in Second Amendment media, You need to be there to be a part of this. Can you explain a little bit about what this directed networking is?
Yeah, so it's a combination between networking, utilizing the people in the room, because there's some really smart people that are going to be in this room, to the brainstorming of your own business plan. And so AmCon itself is created to prop up, give a hand up, support and assist new media. So people who want to be writers and bloggers and YouTubers and videographers, or, podcasters, all of that kind of stuff. And yet when you start to do it, you're like, okay, I've done this. Ta-da! And nobody looks, or nobody sees me, or nobody finds me. Or how do I get this? Or how do I do that? So we're going to create this kind of a thought process map for them that says, what do they know? Where are they weak? And who else in the room can help them? And so I'm really looking forward to this. Dan Waz is going to be helping me moderate this section of the event. But it's kind of like the 1990s brainstorming session on steroids for 2A.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it's going to be.
That's on Friday, and then Friday night is the opening banquet for Gun Rights Policy Conference.
Fashion show.
Fashion show's Friday night. Okay.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you there will be one person who will not be a model that this year, simply because I'm going to be setting up a broadcast.
Oh. He gives us so many excuses. He just doesn't like to strut his stuff on the catwalk.
Yeah, well, last time I did, I about threw my back out trying to shake something that wasn't supposed to shake anymore. So
Well, you don't have a whole lot of on the tushy side to begin with, so it doesn't shake a lot. But
all right,
anyhow,
at any rate,
how did we end in that
you
direction?
say Charlie was the one that takes us off this direction?
You're talking about shaking it, but GRPC. Let's go into GRPC, because it is probably the best thing in the industry on an annual basis.
I do have the privilege of broadcasting it every year. It goes out on video every year. It has this is going to be the 8th one, I believe, I broadcast. And I love going every year because I get the very first one I went to, I got to talk with Alan Gura, who is the attorney that argued in front of the Supreme Court for the Heller decision. And Alan Gura talked to me like I was somebody important, and that blew me away. I've met Alan Gottlieb, the man who eventually became my boss. I was a teeny tiny little podcaster. I think I had maybe 20 listeners. And Alan Gottlieb treated me like I was the most important person he had to talk to. And I was just blown away. Everybody who is somebody in the Second Amendment community will be there. A lot of them will be speaking. And if you get them at the right time, everybody will be willing to talk with you. You need to be there if you can be.
Yeah, you'll just sit there and you'll be like, oh, look at that. I know that person. I read all their work. I've seen this. I see them on TV, right? All of that. And then you can walk up, shake their hand, talk to them in the hallways. It's amazing. It is very much, it's worth the price of admission.
Both events are, yes.
They're free. So you just need to get there, and it's free. So you get there and that's it. But it is very much, I schedule around it from the time that I discovered it. And that was the part that amazed me, is I had been doing Second Amendment radio in the Cleveland, Ohio area for years, when somehow I was traveling and somebody said, are you going to the Gun Rights Policy Conference? I just happened to be in that town, so I went. But it wasn't like I would have even thought to go out of my way to go to it. And I went, and I was like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever been to. And I haven't missed one since.
Yeah. I remember meeting you in person at that first one you attended. We actually, because I knew you were in radio and we had an empty seat at the broadcast table, I'm like, come over, have a seat. We'll throw you in the mix. And
right.
Yeah. I met you and Charlie Cook that same weekend. So let's. I want to get.
At some point, you have to ask Charlie. He's got a story about that.
All right. I want to get a couple comments on our way out the
Okay.
door here. SAF is in Bellevue, Washington. Have the 2024 GRPC in Bellevue.
It's
Yeah,
not
well,
big enough.
yeah, Bellevue is. I mean, Seattle is a possibility, but they've had it in Chicago, so they're not afraid to go into the belly of the beast.
No, I think that one of the things that they do, though, is they really try to go to where people can come from all directions to go to it. Because if they go to the extremes in the United States, they find the attendance is down.
Yes.
And so going somewhere in the middle to where people can come from all directions is part of their plan.
Although I will say it was 3 years or 4 years ago, the last time GRPC was live in Phoenix was the single highest attended GRPC. They had 1,170 registered, if I'm remembering right.
Well, there's still people that are west of there that are headed out. And Seattle, there's not really there's dolphins.
Yes.
So
Yes, and whales.
yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Amanda, tell us about anything you want to plug, Women for Gun Rights, or your Sunday show on the Target Radio. Well, what do you want to talk about?
Well, either one, tune in. The really cool part is we are part of the Ops Lens on-demand TV channel. And so you can catch both the Women for Gun Rights show that we do live on Friday nights, but you can catch it all week then, or our show Eye on the Target Radio, which we do live on Sunday nights. And then you can watch it anytime all week. So if you have Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV, you can tune into the Ops Lens channel, and you can find me, and you can find some of our friends, and some of Paul's co-hosts are also frequent participants. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to say, Amanda, you hold the distinction of having the most Magnum episode. We're now at 12 minutes 10 seconds over. Everybody, thank you for watching. Come join us again, 5 p.m. Central Time tomorrow when Mike Piwowarski will be my commentator. Until then, everybody, we'll see you next time.